The sleek diplomatic vessel glided toward the massive space station that served as headquarters for the Galactic Council. Inside, Ambassador John Carter adjusted his formal uniform and took a deep breath. After decades of searching the stars for intelligent life, humanity had finally made contact with not just one alien civilization, but an entire community of spacefaring species. "Nervous?" asked Lisa Monroe, his chief aide, as she organized the final documents for presentation. "Wouldn't you be?" John smiled. "First humans to officially represent Earth to the galaxy. No pressure at all." Their ship docked with a gentle bump. Through the viewport, John could see an assembly of aliens waiting in the brightly lit docking bay. Tall, willowy figures with iridescent skin standing next to stocky, four-armed beings and others that defied easy description. "Remember the protocol briefings," Lisa whispered as the airlock hissed open. "No sudden movements, maintain eye contact with the primary speaker, and don't accidentally declare war," John finished with a weak laugh. "Got it." The Earth delegation emerged into the cavernous docking bay. At their head walked John and Lisa, followed by 12 representatives from various Earth nations. They had trained for months for this moment, learning basic diplomatic phrases in the standard galactic language and studying alien customs from the limited information provided during initial contact. A tall alien with silvery skin stepped forward. "Welcome, representatives of Earth. I am High Counselor Zex of the Xelarian Dominion, appointed to guide your species into the galactic community." John bowed slightly, exactly as instructed. "We bring greetings from all humans. We come in peace and friendship." The welcome ceremony proceeded smoothly. The Earth delegation was escorted through grand hallways carved from what appeared to be a single massive gemstone. Alien representatives from dozens of worlds nodded or gestured in their species equivalent of greeting as the humans passed. "This is going better than expected," Lisa whispered as they entered the Grand Council chamber. A massive table shaped in a spiral held seats for all member species, with the most powerful civilizations positioned at the center. What the humans didn't notice was the subtle communication happening between Zex and several other council members. Using neural implants invisible to human eyes, the Xelarians were having a very different conversation. "These humans adapt too quickly," Zex transmitted to his allies. "Our surveillance shows they've advanced from primitive flight to space travel in less than a century. The prediction models suggest they would rival our influence within 3 generations. The solution is clear," came the response from Counselor Vrak. "We cannot allow another aggressive species free access to the stars." During the formal dinner that evening, John noticed something odd. The Xelarians and several other species had withdrawn to a private chamber, leaving the humans with only the lesser members of the council. "Something feels wrong," John muttered to Lisa as they sampled strange but delicious alien foods. Before she could respond, the doors sealed shut with a heavy thud. Alarm flashed across Lisa's face as hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing armed guards. "What is the meaning of this?" John demanded, standing up. High Counselor Zex's voice came over the room's communication system. "The Galactic Council has determined that humanity represents an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. You are hereby quarantined to your solar system until deemed safe for integration." Chaos erupted as the guards fired stunning weapons. John pushed Lisa toward the service entrance. "Run. Someone needs to warn Earth." Lisa slipped through the kitchen as John and several others created a diversion. Panicked staff and confused dignitaries scattered as energy weapons discharged around them. Lisa reached an escape pod bay, her heart pounding. Behind her, she heard the screams of her colleagues. With shaking hands, she launched a pod toward the nearest communication relay. Earth needed to know. They weren't being welcomed. They were being contained. Lisa's escape pod tumbled through space, its emergency systems barely functional after the hasty launch. For 6 days she drifted, conserving oxygen and sending distress signals on every frequency. When Earth's defense ships finally located her, she was nearly unconscious. "They betrayed us," were her first words when she awoke in the orbital medical facility. The Council, the Xilarians, they never intended to welcome us. Colonel Frank Wilson stood grimly by her bed, recording every detail as Lisa described the ambush. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped his davad. "And the rest of our delegation?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Captured or killed," Lisa whispered. "Ambassador Carter created a diversion so I could escape. I don't know if he survived." Within hours, strange ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They made no aggressive moves but formed an unmistakable blockade. When Earth's authorities attempted communication, the response was coldly formal. By order of the Galactic Council, humanity is quarantined to this solar system until deemed sufficiently civilized for galactic integration. Any vessel attempting to leave this boundary will be neutralized. Emergency sessions convened in every major government. For the first time in history, nations set aside their differences in the face of this external threat. Operation Safeguard Horizon was activated, bringing together the brightest minds on the planet. Dr. Mary Bennett was pulled from her quantum physics laboratory at midnight. "We need you," was all the message said, along with coordinates to a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. "What we're facing is technologically superior to anything we've developed," Colonel Wilson explained to the assembled scientists and military leaders. "But Lisa brought us something invaluable." He revealed a small device recovered from Lisa's escape pod, a damaged piece of alien technology she had grabbed during her flight. "It's part of their shield generator," Marie said after 3 days of non-stop analysis. She pushed her curly hair back from her tired eyes. "And I think I've found a weakness." Marie explained that the alien shields operated on a quantum frequency pattern that could be disrupted. "If we can match the resonance and then shift phase at exactly the right moment, we might create a temporary window." "A window big enough for a weapon?" asked General Ramirez. "Or a ship," Marie replied quietly. On the surface, Earth appeared to accept its quarantine. Diplomatic channels remained open, with Earth leaders feigning cooperation and humility. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Mars and hidden within the asteroid belt, construction began. Lisa recovered and joined the resistance effort, teaching others the alien language and protocols she had learned. "They think we're primitive," she told the recruits. "Their arrogance will be their weakness." 3 months after the quarantine began, the alien ships detected unusual energy readings from Earth. A communication came from the Xilarian commander. "Your species is prohibited from developing quantum resonance technology. Cease immediately or face consequences." Earth's official response was apologetic, claiming the energy signatures were merely an experiment gone wrong. The aliens seemed satisfied with the explanation. That night, Colonel Wilson met privately with Dr. Bennett in the Secure Command Center. "Are we ready?" he asked. Marie nodded. "The prototype works. We can disrupt their shields for 8.3 seconds. Not long, but enough to slip something through." "Or someone," Wilson said. He activated a holographic display showing a small, sleek ship unlike any Earth had built before. "Meet the Defiance, first of our new fleet, incorporating what we've learned from the alien tech." Marie studied the design. "When do we strike back?" "Not yet," Wilson said grimly. "First, we need an army. And for that, we need to free our people." The Martian underground bustled with activity, hidden from the watchful eyes of the alien blockade. What had once been mining tunnels were now makeshift shipyards stretching for miles beneath the red planet's surface. The air hummed with the sound of welding tools and the hiss of hydraulic presses as Earth's first space fleet took shape. Captain Susan Reynolds walked between half-built ships, inspecting their progress. Her military background and exceptional piloting skills had made her the natural choice to lead this operation. "How's the Defiance coming along?" she asked, stopping beside the largest vessel. Engineer Paul Garcia climbed down from the hull, wiping sweat from his brow. "We've integrated the modified shield technology. If Dr. Bennett's calculations are correct, will be practically invisible to their sensors. Susan ran her hand along the smooth metal of the ship. Unlike traditional Earth vessels, this one incorporated elements of the alien technology Lisa had brought back. The result was something entirely new, a hybrid that leveraged human ingenuity with advanced alien science. "And the weapons systems?" she asked. Paul grinned. "That's where we got creative. We reversed their shield frequency to create an energy beam that should penetrate their defenses, untested in actual combat, but the simulations are promising." Throughout the asteroid belt, similar operations were underway. Mining facilities that once extracted minerals now manufactured components for the fleet. Communication between sites used old-fashioned radio waves, technology so outdated the aliens didn't bother monitoring it. Back on Earth, Dr. Bennett worked with a small team to develop the Phoenix Project, the code name for their stealth technology. In her lab deep underground, she fine-tuned the quantum resonance disruptors. The key is to match their scanning frequency, then shift slightly out of phase, she explained to Colonel Wilson during his inspection. Like hiding in the blind spot of their technological eye. "And they won't see us coming?" Wilson asked. "Not until it's too late," Marie confirmed. "But we only have one chance at surprise." Wilson nodded grimly. "Then we make it count." As the fleet grew, so did their intelligence network. Lisa had managed to salvage parts of the alien communication system from her escape pod. With that as a starting point, Earth's computer specialists hacked into the lower security channels of the Galactic Council. "Most of it is encrypted," Lisa explained during the weekly briefing. "But we're learning their patrol schedules, identifying weaknesses in their blockade." The real breakthrough came 3 months into the project. An unassuming maintenance worker on one of the blockade ships, a member of a species called the Floraxians, sent an unexpected message. "Not all council races agree with the quarantine." The message read, "Some of us believe the Xalarians have overstepped their authority. We can help." Cautiously, Earth established contact with this potential ally. Soon, a network of sympathizers formed within the lower ranks of various alien species. They provided crucial information about Council defense systems and the location where the Earth prisoners were being held. 6 months after the quarantine began, the Defiance was ready for its first test flight. Susan Reynolds took the helm, with Paul Garcia monitoring the ship's systems. "Activating stealth drive," Paul announced as the ship rose from its underground hangar. The Defiance slipped past Mars' atmosphere. Just beyond orbit, an alien patrol cruiser passed overhead, less than a mile away, without detecting them. Susan allowed herself a small smile. It works. The test continued through the blockade line. The Defiance passed between 2 massive alien warships, completely invisible to their sensors. When they returned to base, Colonel Wilson was waiting. The successful test confirmed what they had hoped. They could move through the blockade undetected. "Set course for the Xalarian detention facility," Wilson ordered. "It's time to bring our people home." Susan nodded, determination in her eyes. "And then we show the Galactic Council exactly what humans do when backed into a corner." The Xalarian detention facility orbited a barren moon in a distant star system. From the outside, it resembled a massive metal ring with spikes extending inward. Inside those spikes were hundreds of cells holding prisoners from across the galaxy, species that had somehow offended the Council, including the surviving humans from the diplomatic mission. Ambassador John Carter sat on the hard floor of his cell, scratching marks into the wall to track the days. His once pristine uniform hung in tatters from his thinner frame. The cell door slid open, and a guard tossed in a container of nutrient paste. "Eat, human," the guard said flatly. "Inspection today." John waited until the guard left before taking the container to the ventilation duct in the corner of his cell. He tapped a pattern on the metal grating. 3 quick, 2 slow. A voice whispered from the duct. "John, is that you?" "Yes, Amy," he replied quietly. "They mentioned an inspection. This might be our chance." In the adjacent cell, Communications specialist Amy Douglas pressed her ear against the duct. During their months of captivity, she had been working on understanding the facility's systems. Her cell was next to a maintenance junction, and she'd managed to access a data terminal during cleaning duty. "I've mapped most of the security grid," she whispered. "There's a blind spot in Section 4 during shift changes." Along the same corridor, Security Officer Kevin Rodriguez exercised relentlessly in his cell. Since their capture, he had maintained his strength, preparing for any opportunity to escape. When John's message reached him through the prison's improvised communication network, he began his final preparations. The inspection began 2 hours later. High-ranking Solarians moved through the cell block, examining the prisoners like specimens in a zoo. When they reached John's cell, the lead inspector observed him with disdain. "This is their leader. Hardly impressive," he said to his assistants. John kept his eyes down, appearing broken in spirit. In reality, he was counting guards, noting weapons, and waiting for his moment. That moment came when a small explosion rocked a distant part of the station. The guards looked alarmed, and several ran toward the disturbance. "Now," John hissed into the duct. Amy had caused the diversion by shorting out a power coupling. As alarms blared, Kevin managed to overpower a guard who came to secure his cell, taking the alien's weapon and access card. Moving quickly, Kevin freed John and Amy, and they began working their way through the less guarded sections of the prison. Amy led them to a communication hub she had identified during her covert exploration of the station's systems. "I need 3 minutes," she said, fingers flying across the alien interface. "I can send a message to Earth through their own relay network." Kevin and John stood guard while Amy worked. She had learned enough of the alien coding language to bypass security protocols and access the communication array. "Done," she finally said. "I sent our location and the facility schematics. I also downloaded everything I could about their defense systems." An announcement echoed through the station in the harsh Solarian language. "They know we've escaped," John translated grimly. "We need to move." The 3 humans fought their way to the shuttle bay, joined by other escaped prisoners from various species who saw an opportunity in the chaos. A small transport vessel sat unguarded as most of the security forces searched the residential sections. "Can anyone fly this thing?" asked a reptilian prisoner who had joined their group. Kevin stepped forward. "I had basic pilot training. If it's anything like the simulators we studied before the diplomatic mission, I might be able to manage it." As they boarded the shuttle, alarm sirens grew louder. Security forces were heading toward the bay. "We won't all fit," John realized, looking at the dozen escaped prisoners crowding the shuttle. Amy grabbed his arm. "John, come on." He shook his head. "Get that information to Earth. I'll hold them off." Before they could argue, John sealed the shuttle door and turned to face the approaching guards. He picked up a fallen weapon and took position by the bay controls. As the shuttle engines fired up, John engaged the emergency launch sequence and opened fire on the incoming guards. The last thing Amy and Kevin saw as their shuttle blasted into space was John Carter, standing his ground, buying them the time they needed to escape. "Course set for Earth," Kevin said quietly. "Let's make sure his sacrifice wasn't for nothing." The message from the escaped prisoners reached Earth's hidden command center in the middle of the night. Colonel Wilson was awakened immediately and stood staring at the data scrolling across the screen, barely believing what he was seeing. "They made it," he whispered. "And they sent us everything. Defense codes, patrol patterns, even the Solarians' emergency protocols." Dr. Bennett analyzed the technical data, her eyes widening. "This changes everything. Their shields operate exactly as we predicted, but now we have their exact frequencies." Within hours, Earth's hidden fleet received significant upgrades based on the new information. Captain Susan Reynolds supervised the modifications to the Defiance and the 7 other ships now ready for combat. "All ships report ready," Susan announced from the bridge of the Defiance. "Strike force assembled and awaiting your command, Colonel." Wilson's face appeared on the main screen. You have green light, Captain. Operation Breakthrough begins now. Susan turned to her crew. You heard the Colonel. Let's show these aliens what happens when you corner humans. The Earth fleet slipped silently out of their hidden bases, cloaked by Dr. Bennett's stealth technology. They passed through the blockade undetected, 8 ships moving like ghosts between the massive alien vessels. Once clear of the solar system, Susan gave the order. All ships, maximum speed to rally point Alpha. The fleet jumped to speeds the aliens had thought impossible for human technology. They were heading for a strategic point in the blockade where 3 main Solarian command ships coordinated the quarantine operation. 2 minutes to contact. Paul Garcia announced from his engineering station. Weapons hot, shields configured to their blind frequencies. Susan took a deep breath. This is for Ambassador Carter and all the others. On my mark. Strike. The Earth fleet dropped their stealth fields simultaneously and opened fire. The alien ships, caught completely by surprise, had no time to raise their shields before the first barrage hit. Direct hits on all targets, shouted the weapons officer. Their command ship is disabled. Across the communication channels, panic spread through the alien fleet. They had never expected an attack from outside the blockade, especially not from ships using technology they recognized as their own, but modified in ways they didn't understand. The Solarian admiral's face appeared on Susan's screen, his silvery features twisted in shock. This is impossible. You are a quarantined species. Consider the quarantine broken. Susan replied coldly. And that's just the beginning. The Earth ships moved in perfect coordination, targeting communication arrays and weapon systems rather than causing mass casualties. This wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. As the battle raged, news spread throughout the Galactic Council. Several races that had disagreed with the Solarian-led quarantine saw an opportunity. The Floraxian representative stood in the council chamber. We move to immediately end this illegal confinement of Earth, the Floraxian announced. The humans have proven themselves worthy adversaries, and the Solarians acted without full council approval. The council erupted in heated debate. Meanwhile, Earth's fleet systematically disabled the blockade, section by section. On the Defiance, Susan received an unexpected transmission. It was from Kevin Rodriguez, piloting the escaped prisoner shuttle. Captain Reynolds, this is Security Officer Rodriguez. We've reached the rendezvous coordinates with the information Ambassador Carter died to protect. Susan felt a pang at the news of Carter's sacrifice. Dock with us immediately. Your information has already saved countless lives. With the blockade crumbling, Earth ships began escorting human merchant vessels back into space. For the first time since the quarantine began, humanity freely moved beyond their solar system. In the council chamber, the Solarian High Counselor Zex faced growing opposition. You assured us humans were primitives who would accept their confinement, shouted a representative from another species. Instead, they've broken your impenetrable blockade in less than a year. Colonel Wilson's face appeared on the council's main communication screen. His expression was stern but measured. The Galactic Council will now hear Earth's terms, he said simply, and I suggest you listen carefully. The Earth fleet pushed deeper into Galactic Council space, their advance methodical and precise. Captain Susan Reynolds stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as her ships formed a protective screen around the diplomatic vessel carrying Colonel Wilson toward the Council headquarters. Any resistance? She asked her sensor officer. Nothing significant, Captain. Most Council worlds are standing down after our breakthrough. Only the Solarian forces continue to engage. Susan nodded. The strategy was working. By targeting only military installations and avoiding civilian casualties, Earth was making it clear this was not an invasion but a mission to correct an injustice. Meanwhile, Dr. Mary Bennett worked frantically in the science lab aboard the Defiance. With Amy Douglas providing translation, they sorted through mountains of data taken from Solarian archives during the raids. I think I found something, Marie said, enlarging a document on her screen. Look at these communication logs from before the diplomatic mission. Amy leaned forward, her eyes widening as she read. This is a direct order from High Counselor Zex to arrange the ambush. And here, she pointed to another section. Proof they conducted surveillance on Earth for years, monitoring our progress. Mary continued scanning. They classified us as a highly adaptive potential threat long before first contact. The welcome ceremony was always meant to be a trap. We need to get this to Colonel Wilson immediately, Amy said. This proves the Xelarians acted alone, without council approval. Aboard the diplomatic vessel, Colonel Wilson prepared to address the full Galactic Council. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, many seeing a human for the first time. Security was tight, with both council guards and Earth Marines watching each other warily. You claim we acted unjustly, said the Floraxian representative who had become Earth's strongest ally. Now is your chance to present your evidence. Wilson stepped forward. We came to you in peace. Your response was treachery and imprisonment. But rather than seek revenge, we ask for justice. The chamber screens activated, showing the evidence Dr. Bennett had uncovered. The logs clearly showed the Xelarian conspiracy. Years of planning culminating in the attack on Earth's diplomatic mission. As you can see, Wilson continued, this was not a council action, but the work of one species fearing competition. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many council members appeared shocked. Others nodded as if long-held suspicions were confirmed. High Counselor Zex rose from his seat, his silvery skin flushed with a dark blue tint. These documents are forgeries. Humans are masters of deception. The documents bear authentication codes only Xelarian systems could generate, countered the Floraxian. They are genuine. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. A fleet of Xelarian warships had broken through the defensive perimeter and was approaching the council headquarters. This council session is a farce, Zex shouted. The human threat will be eliminated once and for all. Captain Reynolds' voice came over Wilson's communicator. Colonel, we've detected a massive Xelarian battle group on approach. They're deploying weapons we haven't seen before. Wilson addressed the council calmly despite the chaos. You now face a choice. Stand with Earth against this aggression, or allow the Xelarians to dictate galactic policy through force. On the Defiance, Susan was already organizing her fleet. Move to intercept. Priority is protecting the council station. The Earth ships formed a defensive line between the approaching Xelarian fleet and the council headquarters. What had begun as a mission for justice was now transforming into something more. Earth forces standing in defense of the very council that had wronged them. Xelarian vessels in weapon range, reported the tactical officer. Hold positions, Susan ordered. Let them fire first. The galaxy needs to see who the real aggressors are. The Xelarian flagship launched the first salvo, energy weapons blazing across the void. The battle for truth, and perhaps the future of humanity's place in the galaxy, had begun. Back in the council chamber, representatives from dozens of worlds watched the space battle unfold on the main screens. Wilson stood firm, his expression resolute. Now you see the truth, he said simply. Choose wisely. The space around the council headquarters erupted in brilliant flashes as Earth ships engaged the Xelarian fleet. Captain Susan Reynolds gripped her command chair as the Defiance shuddered under enemy fire. Shields holding at 60%. Paul Garcia reported from the engineering station. Their weapons are powerful, but we can match them. Susan studied the tactical display. The Xelarians had numbers, but Earth ships were more maneuverable and employed unpredictable attack patterns that confused the alien commanders. Focus fire on their flagship, Susan ordered. All ships, execute pattern Delta. The Earth fleet broke formation and regrouped in a three-dimensional attack configuration that no Xelarian defensive algorithm could predict. Ships darted in from multiple vectors, striking then retreating before the larger alien vessels could respond. Inside the council chamber, the representatives watched in awe as the supposedly primitive humans demonstrated combat tactics unlike anything in the galactic military records. "How is this possible?" asked a multi-limbed counselor. "They were in quarantine for less than a year." "That's what makes humans dangerous and valuable," Colonel Wilson explained, never taking his eyes off the battle display. "We adapt. We learn. We survive." The tide turned when 3 council species unexpectedly joined the fight on Earth's side. The Floraxians, along with the insectoid Trell and a crystalline Vox, deployed their ships against the Xelarians. "This is Floraxian Commander Pelx," came a transmission to the Defiance. "The Xelarians have dominated Council policy too long. We fight with Earth." With new allies joining the battle, the Xelarian fleet found itself surrounded. Their flagship maintained heavy fire, but smaller vessels began to retreat or surrender. High Counselor Zex, seeing his forces crumbling, made a final desperate move. His flagship charged directly toward the Council station, weapons powering up for a devastating strike that would destroy the headquarters and everyone inside. "He's going to ram the station," Amy Douglas shouted from her communication station. Susan didn't hesitate. "Intercept course. Maximum thrust." The Defiance shot forward, placing itself between the Xelarian flagship and the Council station. As the massive alien vessel bore down on them, Susan gave her final order of the battle. "Deploy the quantum disruptor." Dr. Bennett's ultimate creation, a weapon that targeted the specific atomic frequency of Xelarian shield technology, fired from the Defiance. The beam struck the flagship, and for a moment nothing happened. Then, like glass shattering in slow motion, the Xelarian shields collapsed completely. Standard weapons from all Allied ships concentrated fire on the now defenseless flagship. It erupted in a series of explosions before drifting dead in space. "High Counselor Zex's vessel is disabled," Susan reported to Colonel Wilson. "The remaining Xelarian ships are standing down." In the Council chamber, a new era began. The senior representatives formed a circle around Colonel Wilson, who stood tall despite his exhaustion. "Earth demands justice, not vengeance," Wilson stated firmly. "We propose a new galactic charter, one that protects developing species from exploitation and guarantees fair representation for all worlds." Over the next several days, the foundations of a new galactic order took shape. The Xelarians, stripped of their dominant position, were required to make reparations to Earth and other worlds they had wronged. High Counselor Zex and his conspirators faced trial for war crimes. 1 month later, a solemn ceremony was held on Earth. A memorial was dedicated to Ambassador John Carter and the diplomats who had died in the First Contact ambush. Their sacrifice had ultimately led to humanity's accelerated entry into galactic politics. Captain Susan Reynolds received a new commission, command of Earth's first official diplomatic vessel, named the Carter in honor of the fallen ambassador. Dr. Mary Bennett's technological innovations earned humanity respect among the scientifically advanced species. Amy Douglas and Kevin Rodriguez became instructors, teaching other humans about alien cultures and technologies. Colonel Wilson offered the position of Earth's first official representative to the Reformed Council, surprised everyone by declining. "I'm a soldier, not a diplomat," he explained. "Earth needs someone who can build bridges, not just defend them." He recommended Captain Reynolds instead, believing her experience in both combat and cooperation made her ideal for the role. As Earth ships began regular routes throughout Council space, humanity quickly earned a reputation. They were adaptable, innovative, and formidable when threatened, but fair and compassionate in victory.